All right, today we're not just going to talk about cloud infrastructure. No. We're going to become cloud architects. We're going to design something right from the ground up and really get into the creative process of building a digital home for our most important applications.
So picture this. You've built this absolutely amazing application. It's your masterpiece. But it can't just float around out there in the digital ether, right? It needs a place to live, a place to run, a place to be secure. The real question isn't if it goes in the cloud, but how we're going to build its home there.
And look, just spinning up a single virtual machine, that's not going to cut it. That's kind of like putting a priceless painting in a garden shed. Your application, it deserves a proper home. You know, a real structure with rooms and doors and locks, all designed with a specific purpose in mind.
And that's exactly what we're doing today. So let's step away from the keyboard for just a minute, metaphorically speaking, of course. You and I, we're the architects, and we are about to draw the blueprint for your application's perfect home right inside of Azure. Okay, first things first. Every great building has to start with a plot of land. And in the cloud, our plot of land is our very own private network. So this is our foundation. It's called the Azure Virtual Network, or VNet for short. The best way to think of it is as your own private, completely fenced-off piece of the massive Azure landscape. It's totally isolated. This gives you absolute control over who and what gets in or out. This is where we're going to build everything. So now that we have our land, we need to define its boundaries. How big is our property? This is where we get into planning our digital address space. Just like in real estate, right? The very first step is to survey the land and draw those property lines. In the world of networking, this just means deciding on the total size of our network and the range of addresses we can actually use inside of it. Okay, don't let this string of numbers freak you out. This is called CIDR notation, and it's simply how we as architects draw those property lines. That /16 at the end, that's the magic part. It basically tells us how big our plot of land is. In this case, it gives us over 65,000 available addresses. That is a pretty big estate to build on. But here is the absolutely crucial part. You have to think about the future right now. Are you ever going to need to build a bridge to another network, or maybe connect back to your physical office? And what if your application becomes this huge, wild success and just needs way more space? Seriously, planning your address space is one of the most important decisions you'll make, right at the start. All right, our property lines are drawn. Now it is time for the fun part, designing the interior. We're going to zone our network into different rooms, or as we call them, subnets. So what is a subnet? It's just a smaller, logical piece of our bigger VNet. If the VNet is our whole building, then the subnets are the individual rooms. We can create a room for the lobby, maybe another for the offices, and a super secure vault in the back. This separation is totally key for organization and, you guessed it, for security. Let's use a really classic example. Just imagine a standard web application. We can design 3 rooms or subnets for it. First up, the web tier. This is our public lobby where all the visitors arrive. Second is the application tier. Think of this as the back offices where the real work gets done. And third, the data tier. That's the secure vault where we keep all our most valuable information. And this is how we lock the doors to those rooms. We use something called network security groups, or NSGs. You can see here, we only allow internet traffic into our web tier lobby. Then the application tier can only be accessed from the web tier. And that ultra-secure data tier, it can only be reached from the application tier. Everything else from the internet? Denied. By default. It's simple, it's elegant, and it's really good security. So, our building is secure on the inside. But what about when our application needs to talk to the outside world? Let's take a look at how we control that traffic flow. Yeah, this is a super common thing, right? Maybe our app needs to go out and download the latest security patches, or connect to some third-party API. How do we let our private, secure stuff talk to the public internet without opening it up to danger? Well, we've got 2 main options here. We could assign a public IP directly to a resource, which is like giving it its own public mailbox. This is perfect for our web server, which needs to get traffic from the internet. Or we can use an Azure NAT gateway. Now, this is more like having a single, secure mailroom for the entire building. It lets all our private resources send mail out to the internet, but it doesn't allow any unsolicited mail to come back in. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, we have our blueprints, but before we start building, let's talk about the big uh-ohs, the common mistakes you absolutely want to avoid. Honestly, learning from what others got wrong is the fastest way to become a great architect yourself.
First up, we've got a mistake that seems pretty obvious, but it's a trap that even seasoned pros can fall into. The mistake is using overlapping IP addresses. Seriously, don't do this. It's the network equivalent of giving your building the exact same street address as the building next door. If you ever want to connect them, or peer the networks, the traffic just won't know where to go. It becomes a total routing nightmare. Always, always use unique address spaces. Mistake number 2 is a classic failure of imagination, and trust me, it can box you in years down the road. And that is not leaving yourself room to grow. You might think a smaller address space, like a /24, which has about 250 addresses, is plenty. But what happens when your app just blows up? You can't just easily expand your VNet's address space later on. It's so much better to build on a big plot of land from the get-go, even if you don't use it all right away. And finally, mistake number 3. This one usually comes from trying to take a shortcut, but it's a shortcut that can leave your front door wide open. And that is putting everything into one single giant subnet. I get it, it's tempting because it seems easier, but it's a massive security risk. It's like building a giant warehouse with no internal walls. If one thing inside catches fire or gets compromised, the whole building is at risk. Those rooms we designed, our subnets, they are fundamental to a strong security posture. You gotta use them. So there it is. We've gone from a totally blank page to a complete architectural blueprint for a secure, scalable, and professional network in Azure. You get the land, the boundaries, the rooms, the locks on the doors. The blueprint is now in your hands. So the only real question left is, what are you gonna build?